with that, let's get started. Alright, let's see if we get a good top guard here. Yes, very nice. He confusingly moved into the bush. The guard basically has got a chance to move in all four directions, even though he can't physically walk, except down to the right. So it'll look like he's either standing still, or he's going to move in a way that's going to block me. Still, though, that guard is so much closer than the other two that it's worthwhile going up there rather than either going to the right-hand side or to the bottom by their first choice. Hey, we got a fight on the NES Imp Square. That's where, in the NES version of the game, if you're doing encounter manipulation, you'll get your very first battle. And if you've played the game all the way through the ending credits, it'll be 5 imps with a preemptive strike in that version of the game. This version of the game, you don't have any encounter manipulation at all, so I just have to kind of take what it gives me. Which hopefully it's going to give me some monsters. There we go. Ooh, this is a weird battle. Well, let's try to clear this guy out. The Grey Wolf's the only one that is particularly dangerous in this fight. The other imps are just going to be slow to kill. And I need to have something that'll get me to level 2 at all my characters. Looks like it's got more than enough experience to do it. It's just a lot slower than the ones I typically hope for. A single ghoul is a great fight. He's weak to Dia, as well as only having like 45 hit points, I think. Or you could do like groups of zombies. There we go. And level 2 just makes the Garland fight much, much faster, as well as significantly safer. That last cure was a really low roll. Normally you could have a little bit more HP on the White Mage, so that you don't have to worry about needing multiple cures on her. The fighter is the one that's more likely to need 2, because he's got such a big level up for HP growth between level 1 and level 2. Nice critical there. That helps us make up a little bit of time lost in that random battle that we fought. A good round against Garland is typically about 60 damage across all 4 of your attacks. There's not a big difference at this point with how much damage output the characters do. Even the White Mage has got a pretty good shot of doing in the teens. Now that we're level 2, our Red Mages are going to double their damage output thanks to having a second hit per round. And when we get to Provoca, that's where I'm going to buy a broadsword, and there the fighter's damage takes off. At that point in the game, the White Mage is really done with physical combat. That's why she actually ends the game with the same weapon she has on right now. Wait just a minute. We need that loot. What does this bridge have to do with the prophecy? It's never really explained in the game. I think it's one of the great mysteries. They should have really kind of fleshed out the bridge scene for at least another couple of good stories. Yeah, holding on to the loot for as long as you do in this game is really, really brutal. Especially in the NES version where you don't get any indications that you really need the loot until you get to Temple of Fiends and you're behind Phantom. If you don't have character classes that can cast teleport and exit, you don't even have a way back out at that point. Alright, it looks like we did not get any strong level ups for our red mage. Unfortunate. But we'll keep trying. Also, for some reason, it looks like the game audio decided to want to really go into mono sound. I think I have fixed that, but let me know if it's still a problem. I used the advanced technical solution of going into the back and wiggling all the cables. Okay, so at this point we've gotten to level 3, and I can't really afford anything in Provoca yet, so I'm going to try to run there as quickly as possible. Guana, we'll fight you later. Maybe we'll run away from some ogres. Those are nice to run away from, unlike the wolves, which have super high agility. And at Provoca, I will go and do the 15 puzzle. 15 puzzle is in every variation of this game, but they have a lot of different rewards depending on which one you're playing. The original NES was just kind of like a token reward. It's like a fun little side quest buried inside of the game. And they added more and more interesting consequences for playing it in later versions. This one's got a really nice item, which I can get if I find myself in the second place position. That's the emergency exit. Emergency exit will let me instantly warp out of the Earth Cave if I happen to win that. That's the one I'm going to be shooting for. Expensive Foreigner, we do not know who Dan is tonight. Both Lollybo and Gil are decent names historically. So it really could be a surprise who Dan is, or Dan might be taking the night off. He is pretty lazy. I hear he takes a lot of naps. For the pirate battle, I don't really have to worry about the damage that I'm taking. The white mage is really the only one that could potentially be a concern. That's because she's got the cloth armor as opposed to everybody else who's got chainmail. However, if you come in with a decent amount of hit points, the pirates are a pretty straightforward battle. I actually use a slightly different split point between NES and GBA versions. NES, I was forgetting to get the ship so frequently that I changed my split to be after I talked to Bicky a second time and get the ship dialogue. Fortunately, this version links together a lot more events, so you don't have to worry about things like not getting the Mystic Key or not getting the ship or not getting loot. It's all taken care of. Hey Sid, welcome in. Alright, I'm going to have to delay quite a bit here. So the finishing time is, you have to be at least 30 seconds to get to the second place prize, and I want to do this twice, so I'm going to leave myself a little bit of room here, which means waiting to 45 seconds on the first playthrough. If I finish before 30 seconds, it's a good prize. It's the Mega Elixir, which is worth a lot of cash. There's a plain old regular elixir. That'll be good enough to fuel most of my purchases here. Alright, where's my 4? We'll do it this way. And we got an emergency exit. It is a nice night. So I'll be selling that elixir and the gold needle that I got for money here, where I can buy a broadsword and temper spells, and we'll save the emergency exit for the Earth Cave. Plenty of cash now. So I've gotten the emergency exit like the last 5 or 6 runs. I switched to a different cart. I have no idea if that's making the difference. On the old cart, I know that I was getting it much less frequently. And it could just be that, you know, I'm not playing that many times and I have a good statistical sample for it. Oh man, this is an awful, awful battle. What can we do here? It's gonna be really hard to run, so I'm going to try to kill the big eyes first. And then we'll kill off the Sahigwins. Anyways, yeah, I've got a couple of different copies of it, just for like a backup in case one of them breaks. It's appreciated, but I think 2 is going to be enough, especially with Limit Break starting this weekend. It's really the reason why I got the second cart, is so that if something up at the marathon, there wouldn't be anybody else there with another copy. And it's not like a NES game or a Super Nintendo game where you can use like a flash cart. There's GBA flash carts that do exist, but I didn't think anybody would have one. So what I'm doing now is grinding up to level 7, 7.5 before going into Marsh Cave. I do have, thanks to all the cash I got from the elixir, the ability to buy extra tents, and that means I can do some of my grinding closer to the Marsh Cave side. If I don't have those tents, then I have to basically get all of my grinding done before I can even buy the items I need for Marsh Cave. This zone over here is slightly higher level encounters, so once I step across this line, going from that first mountain to the second mountain, then I can start getting green ogres as well as some of the undead packs that the white mage can take out with Thea. And by doing that, it more or less cuts 1 or 2 battles off if I get lucky. If I get unlucky, I'll get lots of things like werewolves and big packs of creeps and other stuff. And you'll see me kind of use this technique where, since we can save anywhere without having to use a consumable item, as long as it's not going to cost you more than like 10 seconds to finish the battle, you might as well reset, and that way you can get onto the next one a little bit faster. Alright, there's level 6. Get some good level ups with our mages. You can see that their HP growth is a little bit different between the two. Our second red mage has gotten 2 strong level ups compared to just 1 for the first red mage. However, 82 is probably on good pace for being able to survive at least 1 hit by the wizards. I'll put the red mage with 65 in the back if he continues to lag behind when we're at level 7. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is actually use my extra cash to go buy another tent, and I'll get my 7th level on the way to Marsh Cave. Puts me in a little bit better position. Also buy some defensive gear for our fighter. It makes him just a bit buffer against a lot of these physical damage creatures that we're going to be facing. I don't know, I'm not often seeing ogres in that thick density, so it's nice to have them around. NES version where I can manipulate the encounters, it is an ogre festival. Like, almost everything I fight is ogres, except for a couple of battles where I have to accept something a little bit worse. This version of the game, because you don't have encounter manipulation, you know, it's a bit more luck of the draw, and I'm always really happy when I fight ogres because these guys are good experience and good gold in one package. Most of the other encounters, you're either going to get good experience, things like sharks on the ocean, or the undead, or you're going to get good gold, things like the pirates. And very rarely do you have something as good as ogres at both. Okay, there's level 7. I didn't get a chance to see if our other red mage got his strong level up. We'll find out right away. Nope. So basically a strong level up at this point in the game is a 1 in 4 chance for the red mages, and it means that instead of their normal HP growth, which is based on the vitality stat, something like 2 or 3 points of HP per level, you get a bonus 25. So the first couple levels, strong level ups are really, really huge. You know, they're going to be like doubling your HP or giving you 50%. Like, really, really dramatically better outcomes. Later on, it becomes a little bit less significant, and the strong level ups tend to average themselves out. However, I do have 2 points in the game where I am looking very closely at the HP. One's going to be at Lich, where I want to see 165 on the red mages, and the other is at Chaos, where I want to see 400. It is non-stop ogres. I am really, really happy with that. I'm taking some extra time here, but it does mean that I don't have to worry about any grinding after fighting through the wizards and Astos. Okay, Marsh Cave. This is a pretty big jump in difficulty compared to what you see in the overworld, and for a lot of people in their casual playthrough, this is where they get stuck for the first time having to deal with the monsters in here. And for me, since I'm doing a little bit of selective battling, I'm resetting whenever I don't get a good encounter, I haven't fought poisonous creatures up to this point, and that is changing now. There's just too many in here to realistically avoid, so that's why I bought those antidotes back in Elfland. I guess a little bit of good news, though, is that whereas in the NES version, poisonous monsters tended to also have a higher than average chance of ambushing you, in this version they kind of took that out, so you don't have to get poisoned nearly as often. Oh, I don't want to run that bat? Okay, we'll take 2 extra steps there. Having to navigate around NPCs means that you're potentially looking at getting into more encounters just because you're taking longer routes through the dungeon. NES version, it was a lot more significant because you're on strict step counts for when you get into next encounters. You couldn't deviate at all if you wanted to be able to successfully finish. Right here, I'm just resetting until I get exactly 2 wizards. Really wants to give me 3, though. You have an equal probability of 2, 3, or 4 wizards. 2 wizards is a difficult struggle. 3 or 4 would just absolutely clobber the party at this point. If you got up to level 9 and had Thundara, you could turn the tables on them. But until that point, wizards are very, very dangerous. I promise, there is an encounter formation with 2 wizards in it. I've gotten it before. There's 2 wizards. Now the other thing I need is for at most 1 person to die in the battle. That's nice that Gil survived the first hit there. Aris did take a lot of damage. Let's see if we can kill a wizard here. Yes. Okay, so they're going to get at most 1 tack off in the next round, and that means that Gil might die. I don't think Lollybo is in range where he could die. There went Gil. And so I'll use my emergency Phoenix down that I picked up earlier, but we can continue on. Now, since I used my emergency Phoenix down on the wizards, I don't have any more left for Astos. Hey, it's the Poisonous Party Mix. It's an encounter formation with 4 different types of poisonous monsters, and in that particular battle, all 4 of them showed up. It's actually kind of rare to see all 4. But as I was saying about Astos, he likes to cast an instant death spell, and it's got a fairly high chance of working. And I won't have a backup if somebody does get instant death. That just means they'll be dead until I can drag their body back to Elfland. The regular spiders are not poisonous, but it's in the family type with them. So that's why we call it the poisonous party mix. Got away from the wolves. So for the Astos battle, I'm going to put the white mage in the front of the party. She's the least important for this fight, and she's also already hit her target level for her next spell, which is going to be where I get Cura and Diara. So she doesn't need any more XP at this point. Means if anybody's going to get hit by that instant death spell, I want it to be her. The other two party members that need spells, the red mages, have to be up at level 9. One of them's got an additional handicap from being dead with the wizard, so he really can't die in this battle, or I'd have to do a lot of grinding to make up for it. Some bigger hits than that from the fighter. Astos has got fairly good evade, which means that the fighter could miss one of his 2 hits or even whiff entirely. The fastest battles through here are going to be where we get both of the hits after the tempers land in each round. There's a good one. This should be the final battle. There we go. So he didn't even get his death spell off. That's pretty rare. Astos likes to use spells overall. And monsters have basically 3 AI scripts. One if it chooses to do a normal attack, one if it chooses to do a special attack, and one if it chooses to do spells. For Astos, he's got a pretty high probability of running the spell script, and his first spell is always going to be that instant death spell. Oh, Visk, I'm merely robbing all of the peoples of the world. If they didn't want that to happen, they shouldn't have chosen us as heroes. On the way by town, I'm going to stop in and get the Thundara spell. Notice that I've gotten into a lot of battles where I had to potentially run away from faster enemies. And with Thundara, I can instead just blast them. So I'll also recover my MP once we get outside. And that means I don't have to worry about things like wolves anymore. Hey, you can't prove that we stole these crystals. The king believed us. That's all that matters. So there, this would be a battle which I potentially would have trouble running from, thanks to the wolf's high agility. I'll have 2 of my party members try to run, and they'll get a slightly better set of odds once the regular wolves are dead. But even if they can't run, the second Sandara is going to take care of the Grey Wolves and the battle's over in the first turn. And I could also have chosen Fyra for the spell, Thundar is a little bit nicer since we're going to be doing a lot of sailing. So, except for those pirates, most of the aquatic enemies we'll fight are going to be weak to lightning. It means only one cast of Thundar to take them out instead of two. I'll be getting Fire anyway on my way back once I have done the Mystic Key quest. I'll tell you here's the next step in our fetch quest to getting the Mystic Key. So we've gotten the crown from Marsh Cave. We took the crown to Astos and killed him for the Crystal Eye. Toya gives us the herb, aka Jolt Tonic, in exchange for that, and we can then take that to the prince to finally get the key. We also are going to not steal her treasure chest because we are fine, upstanding heroes, and also because it's slightly slower to steal a treasure chest in this version of the game. In this version, it's faster to take the treasure chests, because in town you'd be buying items one at a time. Here, since I can buy them in bulk, opening an individual treasure chest for a single potion isn't worth it. Now after we revive the prince, we're going to get the Mystic Key, and that opens up a number of treasury areas in the game. The first one I'm going to plunder is in Elfland itself. There's a couple of nice items in there, but I find that they're better for cash than for actually using. It's the Mithril Hammer, which could be an upgrade for the White Mage, who doesn't really see much combat, as well as a set of gloves for the fighter. I'll be getting better ones when we go up to Northwest Castle. Going in and out is a little bit of a shortcut compared to running all the way around. It's not as big of a significant shortcut in this version because you've got the dash feature. But in the NES version where you walk really, really slowly, it's often faster to exit out of a town and then come back in if you would otherwise have to be walking all the way around it. I'm going to go ahead and hang on to my cottage for a little while. The cottage is the one I picked up in Marsh Cave, and I don't technically need it, because by the time I can buy cottages, I'll have plenty of cash, and I don't need anything besides tents until I get to that point in the game. But if I ever need like an emergency backup, that would be a good way to go. The next little bit is kind of a safety measure to get through Earth Cave. You could, in theory, just go charge ahead at level 9 here. Try to get down to Vampire and Lich, and you'll get some good experience along the way. Enough to probably get up to like level 12 or 13. However, that's not a lot of HP for those red mages, unless you get incredibly lucky on the level ups. So instead what I do is go up to Northwest Castle here, and I can level on mummies until I get to level 12, which means I'll be, instead of 13, maybe around 15 by the time I get to Lich. I'll also have that opportunity to pick up a power staff here, which is worth 12,345 gold, and that'll fuel a lot of my purchases for things like gold needles and potions. Now, the other alternative, particularly if you want to get a lot of levels, is to go to an area called Peninsula of Power. That's kind of a glitch based on how the map system works in the original NES version. It uses really big square blocks, which the landmasses don't always line up to. And as a result, there is an area by Provoca which has much higher level monsters than were intended wandering around there. And if you can beat them, which for undead creatures you can use pretty much the same strategies I'm doing here. Fyra and Diara will take care of them at a relatively low level compared to their XP and gold value. You can get lots of levels really quickly. Bad luck getting our white mage put to sleep. Normally I pair up a Fyra with a Diacast because it is a little bit more efficient on my MP. As you can see, Fyra is a relatively expensive spell. It costs 15 MP each use, whereas Dia is super cheap. So because of that, I'll probably only get to level 11 or so. Try to make up on this 2 mummy pack. Mummies come in either 2, 3, 4, or 5 equal probabilities of each size. So I'm hoping for a lot of 4s and 5s, since it's roughly the same amount of resources to kill them regardless of how many there are that show up. When the white mage gets low on MP, she can actually just switch to potions, which is why I don't worry so much about her. The red mages are the more critical ones for the mummy grind, since their attack spells are what's kind of carrying us through this fight. Got 2 more casts with each of our red mages, which probably will get us to level 12. Having that 5-pack of mummies was really good luck. Normally I see mostly 3s and 4s, and the really good runs are where you get lots and lots of 4s and 5s, because I can sometimes even leave early before I even use up all of my MP in that case. Hey, Chris Gamer, welcome in. Hey, level 12. One of our red mages is behind, so I'm going to get an extra level right here. And I can just blast away with Fyra even though it's only 2 mummies. The game audio balance between my mic and the game itself. That's a technique called audio ducking. Essentially, I have hooked my microphone up to another audio device, which is going to lower the volume of the game sound whenever it detects a signal on there. And that's something you can set up with an audio device called a compressor. You can also get software that does audio ducking, is typically what it's called. Yep, you got it spelled right, just like a duck, quack, quack, quack. And the reason that people do this is, you know, it's common in like DJ applications where you don't want to have the voice be super loud, and you don't want to have the music be super quiet, but you want to have the music kind of get out of the way whenever somebody is using the microphone. Alright, our second stop here in Elfland is to buy gold needles and another big stack of potions, antidotes, and tents. Gold needles are important for Earth Cave because we'll start seeing monsters that can petrify us in there. Go ahead and sell the power staff while I'm thinking about it. Okay, everything looks good there. I need to have a little bit of cash left over because I want to buy the silver armlet in Melmon for my white mage. It's a piece of armor that gives me 15 absorb, the same amount as the red mage's chainmail. And that costs 4,000 gil. I also want to have a little bit of money here when I go up to Cornelia to buy some Phoenix Downs. And that way if somebody dies in the Earth Cave, it's not a tragedy. There's no way to get people revived in the town of Melmon. It doesn't have an item shop, it doesn't have a clinic. And while it sells the life spell, you're way too low level to use it, as well as you haven't done class change yet for the red mages. So it's important when you go over to that western continent to have at least a couple of Phoenix Downs here. Oh, you jerk. There we go. If it wasn't for the fact this was the only door around, if an NPC gives me bad movement, what I can do is go into a building, which when I come back out, it'll have reset all of the NPC's positions. So typically only 1 in 4 of their directions is a bad walk step, which means that resetting gives me a 75% chance of them not being nearly as stupid the second time. Now, doing a quick assessment of our red mage's HP, we have Lollybo at 147. He needs about 18 more, which is a less than 1 strong level up over the next 3 levels in order to be able to survive Blizzara. And then we have the red mage, who might only be referred to as Dan. He's got 100, and he's going to need a real miracle to get up to enough to survive that Blizzara attack. Hey, no problem. I find I enjoy the streams a lot more when I am relaxed and not shouting and raging and other things. And I'm glad other people enjoy that as well. Although it is fun to watch people like get really, really animated and excited sometimes. It's just not my primary viewing experience on Twitch. Okay, so here we took the dynamite from Cornelia and blew the cave up while we're inside of it. So this little land bridge, we're right in the middle under those cracks, which is probably a bad idea. However, somehow they survive. That's why it's magic dynamite, not regular dynamite. So if you want to try that at home, your regular dynamite is not going to work. While we're here, we can grab a lot of good items. There is a helm and a shield upgrade, or a helm and a sword upgrade for our fighter, as well as an armor upgrade for one of our red mages. And I pick up the rest of the treasure chest because it's just a decent amount of money, as well as some more cottages that I can potentially sell in there. That could come in handy by the time I get to Crescent Lake. Hey! Welcome in, Ozzy. Welcome in, Takase. You're just in time for some good old-fashioned dwarven engineering. Now, I should have enough agility by this point. We're like level 12, coming up towards level 13 to run away from the plain wolves. I'm just being a little bit conservative by continuing to use Thundara. In this version of the game, being able to run is an opposed check between your agility and the monster's agility. I think luck might also play a small amount in that. NES version had an entirely different algorithm for running away, and it was horribly, horribly broken. So that by the time you got to level 15, you could run away from everything. Even like late game monsters you could run away from at level 15. So in this version of the game, you have to actually be a lot more conscientious about your speed, the monster's speed, as well as your level overall. And there's even some levels in the late game where you just can't run away. We'll talk about that when we get to things like Temple of Fiends or Visit It. Hey, Stinger! Welcome in, thank you for the host. I saw you doing some soul blazing earlier today. Thank you, Stinger, and thanks again for the host. How did your runs go, by the way? I caught the one earlier, I think was like a 149 or so. Did your second run turn out better? Ooh, nice! Congratulations on the PB. Now these undead would be a real bane in the NES version because you couldn't afford to use any of your spells, and Fire and DR are the only ways to effectively get through this fight. But in this version of the game, since we've got MP instead of spell slots, we can just blast away, and when I save at the tent, it'll all be recovered. It was fun watching you do the Soul Blazer run earlier because the last run I saw was actually Klage and PJ at Poor Life Choices doing a run through the game, and you don't really understand how much is optimizing the speedrun until you watch somebody kind of like stumble through unlocking all of the different animals and trying to figure out where to go in this game. There's not a lot of like good clues for at least the first couple of worlds of Soul Blazer. Okay, so I've got an emergency exit, which is what allows me to warp out after beating Vampire, and that means I don't have to be as conservative with my MP. If I didn't have the emergency exit, I wouldn't be able to cast Thundara against these guys, and I'd have to try to run away. That could be a slow process. But Thundara just makes it so much more safer. If you're short on cash, or you've got multiple fighters in the party, you can pick up the Coral Sword in the upper right-hand corner. The Worm Killer Sword that I have from the Dwarf Cave on the fighter now is the same strength. They have different elements for what they're weak against, but neither dragons nor aquatic enemies are so common that you need to worry about that. And since I have only got the one fighter, it's not worthwhile to pick up more swords that are not like directly on the path. These guys I'm fighting because they're good experience. I need to get at least a couple of levels on my 2 descents through here. And it's good to get 1 or 2 the first pass down. That way you've got more MP for the walk down glitch. Alright, one of our red mages got another strong level. 171 is excellent at this point in the game. Gil, well, he has taken the Dan spot with enthusiasm. I think he still has 3 levels to go though, so we'll see if he can at least get into like the 140s, 150s. What is the difference in the party? Well, I guess to explain it I'll have to start with what's the difference between the NES version and the remakes. NES had a lot of stuff that was broken, and in particular, what was broken mostly was not in your favor. So things like buff spells and elemental attack bonuses and other stuff didn't work in the NES version, which meant you had to have a lot of classical just hitting people in the head for damage points, which fighters are really good at. You also had a very limited selection of spells in the NES version because that used the spell charge concept. So it was better to have red mages who could do a little bit of fighting when they ran out of spell charges, rather than white mages or black mages who would be completely useless other than their 4 or 5 casts per day. Now in this version where they've put in fixes for all the bugs, as well as changed the spell system from spell slots to MP, instead we have a very different mechanic for the fights. We can buff up that one fighter into the stratosphere. Like, we're going to dump buff on top of buff on top of buff until he can do obscene amounts of damage. There's a slight compensation that they made all the bosses tougher. Chaos has got, you know, for example, 20,000 HP instead of 2,000. But if we have enough buffs on that one fighter, we can destroy the moon. So basically what I'm going to do for a lot of the game is just have the 2 red mages be buff bots under the fighter. And for the Chaos battle, Chaos does so much damage I need a white mage to keep up with the healing. Otherwise I would probably run the game either with fighter and 3 red mages, or fighter, 2 red mages, and a ninja. Vampire is going to be a little bit slow here because he paralyzed 2 party members. We typically need to get 6 attacks in. See if we're good enough to get it with 5. It'll be really close. Okay, one more round to go then. There goes Lollybo. Luckily he's the one that had a ton of HP, so he does not need the extra experience for the level. It's actually really rare for Vampire to kill somebody. But that's just because we had to do an extra round in the fight. There's the emergency exit that I won from the 15 puzzle. Since that's a random item, you're not always going to have it, and the backup is you do have to walk backwards the whole dungeon, going from the 3rd floor back out. Good experience, but it takes about 3.5 to 5 minutes depending on the encounters you get. So you save a significant chunk of time if you win that emergency exit prize. I want to say the emergency exit's like 1 in 6 given how many prizes there are. And I give it 2 shots, so I probably have slightly less than half my runs that I actually get to use that shortcut. Here we're using our Star Ruby to get by. They stretched out the Earth Cave dungeon by artificially breaking it in half. You can't get past a plate that's behind the vampire's lair, so you have to go all the way back out, go through this area which you can't access until you've gone down to the vampire, and then come back for a second trip. In later games, they would probably do it with just larger dungeons, but they were really limited in terms of the map space they had, as well as how many different areas that they could fit onto the cartridge. So you see them do a lot more reuse in the early Final Fantasies with things like multiple trips through dungeons or different objectives going through the same place more than once. Here's our friend Sarda the Sage, who gives us the Earth Rod. It's actually a slight name change. Original NES version, it was Sarda, S-A-R-D-A, and in this version they changed his name to 2 Ds for some reason. It's the same pronunciation in Japanese, so I didn't know if there was like any question on authenticity. Like, it probably doesn't make a difference. It's just kind of interesting that they decided to change it. Most of their other text changes were for things like, you know, in the NES version, you just had a really short set of character strings that would fit in. 6 letters for all the monsters and 4 letters for your party name, so a lot of things got shrunk down for space reasons. That wasn't one, because it's the same amount of characters for both spellings. This is another area that has some optional equipment if you need cash. In the southwest corner, there is an axe, which I don't like because it has poor accuracy, even though it's got a good attack power. There's a piece of missile gear, which I can buy at Crescent Lake, and there's some cash. So it's overall worth like maybe about 4,000 or 5,000 to go down there. However, I've got enough money that I can just buy everything that I need up until I get to the eye grind. And at that point, I'm just swimming in cash, since the eye is a really lucrative enemy to kill. You notice I'm getting a lot of preemptives on these shadows. In the NES version, it was actually the opposite. You'd get ambushed maybe 90% of the time. This particular formation just had a really, really high value set for the ambush flag. And there's a couple of fights like that, where they switched them all from really high ambush rates to really high preemptive rates to make the game slightly easier. I kind of miss my ambushing shadows, not from a speedrun perspective, but because it kind of made sense that it'd be really hard to spot them coming up against you. For this trip through Earth Cave, I have to be much more conservative with my magic. I probably need around 50 MP on Lollybow. Imagining Gil is not going to participate very strongly in the Lich fight. The Lollybow's got to be very conservative. I do have an Ether I picked up in the Dwarf Cave, in case I do have to use more than like 3 spells. And the White Mage doesn't have a lot of concerns because, just like the Astos fight, she's not going to be a significant participant. But here, this is a fight where I would have used Thundara the first trip down. Second trip, we're just going to try to wing it. And we got away. Third floor is where you get the next big jump up in difficulty, so the first 2 floors are more or less the same monsters that you see outside, or slightly tougher. This floor gets very nasty. Cockatrices in particular are one of the nastiest things, thanks to their petrification. There goes the fighter. So we'll see if we get out of this one. I do have a couple gold needles. Oh, nice. But the cockatrices are dangerous in the extreme for their petrification, because as people get petrified, there's fewer and fewer targets for them to go after. So the odds of the remaining characters getting petrified just starts shooting up really quickly. The status effects in this version are worse than the NES version. So poison does more damage. Dark actually decreases your accuracy. It didn't have any effect in the NES version, it just gave you cool sunglasses. In this version it does make you worse at combat. Petrification is exactly the same. Paralysis is more or less exactly the same. I want to say that Paralysis is slightly better because you now have a couple of items and spells which will remove it. Whereas NES version, I don't think you could do anything until it wore off naturally. Trying to think what else. Sleep, I think, is worse. There was a bug in how sleep worked that caused you to wake up really quickly. And with that gone, you can stay awake or stay asleep a lot longer in this version. I think I covered all of them. I guess mute, which there's just so few things that cast mute that I have never seen it affect anybody in my party. I have gotten muted by some things, but never anybody that I needed to cast spells in a battle. Those wizard battles I'm fighting because it's an unrunnable encounter. It's the same formation that you have to fight the wizards to get the crown in the Marsh Cave. And to prevent you from running away, they just mark that battle as permanently unrunnable. So even if you get the formation again later in other dungeons, you still can't run away from them. And in NES version, I'm assuming that was done for efficiency, rather than having to track a lot more different monster formations. The remakes, I guess they just kept it to be the same, even though they could have split them out. Fourth floor that we're on right now is more or less the same as the third floor in terms of difficulty. The nice thing is that when we get down to the fifth floor where Lich is, it actually gets slightly easier. So I don't have to worry about cockatrices, and I don't have to worry about stun locking undead or wizards. Okay, we haven't got a lot of experience, so I think we're only at level 14 instead of our more typical 15. Shouldn't affect anybody except for that one red mage who has disastrously bad HP anyway. For Lich, I put the white mage in the front. That way, if he targets anybody with his physical attacks, it'll be the white mage. And I worry about his physical attacks because they can cause paralysis. His Blizzara spell, which he'll probably use pretty early in the fight, you just really can't do anything about. So hopefully Gil gets at least one temper in before he gets Blizzard. Okay, I consider Gil's participation a success. Bye-bye, Gil. I'm going to prioritize healing the red mage. 29 is within the range of Lich killing him with one physical attack. Okay, sleeper on the red mage. Ooh. Hopefully we can get out of this. Because we don't have tempers, the fighter's going to be stuck doing like 150. That'll be probably extending the number of rounds by 2 or 3. We woke up pretty fast. I've seen that sleep just last the entire battle. Trying to heal up in case Lich gets to Thundara. That would be really bad if it hit the fighter and killed him. So I want to make sure everybody's back over 165 if possible. There we go. That was a really nice Earth Cave throughout. We didn't fight a lot of battles, so I saved a big chunk of time there. However, we're going to be paying for that in the next couple of splits because we'll be kind of struggling for experience and beating some of the lower level monsters that would normally not give me much of a problem. But for now, everybody celebrates. Now, this is a new feature for the GBA and PSP versions, is opening up these Soul of Chaos dungeons. Each time you beat one of the 4 fiends, it unlocks an optional dungeon, which is themed after one of the other Final Fantasy games. This is Final Fantasy III's dungeon. And the other fiends are Final Fantasy 4, 5, 6, creatively in order. The optional dungeons do have some decent equipment in them, but unfortunately it's just way too slow for a speedrun. They're randomly generated, so not only do you might have to face different floor orders and different layouts in the floor, but also which treasure chests actually show up is random. It means you can't just like dip in and get like something really nice on the first floor of one of the dungeons. Next up, we're sailing over to Crescent Lake to get the canoe, and the canoe unlocks a big chunk of the game. There's 3 destinations once you have the canoe. They very, very strongly tell you to go to Gregory Volcano. I go to there last of the 3. Your other 2 choices are Castle Ordeals, where you can start the class change quest, and the Ice Cave. I choose to do Ordeals first for some of the good equipment that's in there, as well as it being a relatively short dungeon. And then I go to the Ice Cave, which allows me to get the floater, finish off the class change quest, and do most of the grinding that I'll need for the entire rest of the game. Ordinarily, I probably wouldn't fight this battle, but since we're a little bit low level, the trolls are weak to fire, so 2 Fyras, I'm thinking we'll kill one of them together with the fighter, and then I can get the other one the second round. Alright, how are we doing on cash? We need to sell up to 10,000. I'm going to get rid of some of this junk that's sitting in my inventory and then sell cottages to make sure that I have enough to buy my equipment. Equipment I'm buying here is a pretty strong upgrade for the fighter all around. Armor pieces in this game have 2 statistics. One is absorb, how much damage the armor piece subtracts off every single hit against you. And the other is weight. Weight is penalty applied to your ability to evade things. And early on in the game, basically absorb and weight are tied together, so things that absorb more have worse and worse weight penalties. At this time we get mithril items, it starts reversing. So I'm going to, for the first time, get things that are better protecting and also increase my ability to evade. And a lot of the late game gear gets even better in that balance. That's why I skipped most of the things I could get for my fighter up to this point. For the red mages, I get the buckler. It's the only thing that they can use in their shield slot until you get the pro cape. So even though it's only 2 absorb, it's at least better than nothing. Sailing I do based on landmarks, because as you can see there's really no frame of reference for where you are in the world. It means I have to come up with basically reference points that allows me to sail from one place to another without taking any extra steps. In this case, when I want to go, for example, from Crescent Lake to Ordeals, I can use Marsh Cave as my reference point. As soon as it's off the screen to the left, then I can start sailing down and I'll hit Ordeals dead on every time. That's more important for the NES version, where step manipulation is needed to get the right monster encounters. Wait for off screen, go down, and look for the little peninsula coming up. Now, Ordeals is something that you're not supposed to be at until much, much later in the game. So we'll be seeing a lot of really difficult enemies. I'll take a couple of extra safety saves as a result. This guy that I have to talk to is actually new in this version. The original NES version, you just went up to the chair in the northwest corner, and as long as you had the crown item, it would activate. It's kind of interesting that they did the crown, because there's physically no way that you can get here without having acquired the crown. It's required part of the Mystic Key quest. But just like in the flavor text, it says, I think proof of bravery and courage, and the crown is the item that fits the bill there. And I didn't find out that the crown was a required item until the Famicom version, where I figured out how to do some really major sequence breaking. And there's all kinds of really weird sequence breaking checks to prevent you from getting far ahead in the game, which is surprising because so much of that NES and Famicom version is just bug after bug after bug. But then there's some other parts of the game that's ridiculously solidly well programmed. Trying to think about some of the other ones. If you go to the start of the stage without having gotten the ruby, so physically it's impossible to walk there without having the ruby in the Titan's Tunnel, but he actually has different dialogue pre-ruby versus post-ruby, so he won't give you the Earth Rod if you get there early. The other fun one is that at the very end of the game, in Temple of Fiends Revisited, the door underneath Phantom checks whether or not you've gotten the Mystic Key. And again, that's like the entire game could not possibly have been completed up to that point without having had that item. These guys were thankfully quite nerfed from the NES version. They cast Fire 2 there, which would be doing 60 to 150 damage to everybody in the party. Obviously, we would not be able to survive that at all. This version, they've replaced Fire 2 with plain old Fire, a much, much less threatening spell. I'll get nightmares on this trap tile, but hopefully I only get one nightmare, or if it's two, not an ambush. I would really like to get a preemptive attack so I could run away. Otherwise, they have too much agility for me to try to run from. Yeah, two, but at least it's not an ambush. So here's where the status effects become more apparent. If the snort had hit the fighter, he would have a really low chance of being able to get both of those hits off. In fact, I still have to worry about that for the remaining rounds of the fight. And he misses anyway. Hey, Turo. Gil is doing a really good job of taking the Dan spot this time, I have to say. So he did get a strong level up there, but he was in the 110s at this point, which is slightly better than mid last time. I think mid was at 103. But that's only slightly better. This floor I'm saving a lot because it's our first appearance of the dreaded Sorcerers. Sorcerers have an all-party paralysis attack, as well as instant death on their physical hits, so they are guys you do not want to see ever at all, not once in this game. White Mage just got the Ruby Armlet, which is worth 24 Absorb, upgraded from her 15 Absorb Silver Armlet. And at that point, she actually has better HP as well as better defense than the Red Mages. In this case, it's actually surprisingly close. Normally the White Mage has way, way more HP than either of the Red Mages, but Volleybo's doing good. Ooh, there's the Sorcerers. There's the instant death. There's the all-party paralysis. I'll give it one more chance to get away. I got a decent number of steps in. Yeah. It's not working out. That's why I save pretty frequently on this floor. Same thing happens in some of the lower floors on the Ice Cave, where, again, there's lots and lots of Sorcerers. NES version was even worse because there was a bug with how the sorcerers were programmed. Normally, monsters have an associated element. Even if they don't have elemental attacks or anything like that, they stuck an element flag on them. And that means that their physical hits, any status effects by their physical hit, is blocked if you have that appropriate element. Some of them are really weird, like Undead are fire element, which means that you can't be put to sleep by mummies if you've got fire resistance, for example. Well, Sorcerers had no element, which means nothing in the game will stop them in the NES version. Ribbons don't work, Pro Rings don't work, their instant death is just really, really effective, and it continues to be effective for the whole game. This version, I think, instant death protection does prevent it from activating, but then nothing prevents their all-party paralysis, unfortunately, except for your magic defense. I think we are doing good. I would fight more Zombies if we were having a higher MP at this point. That's because the Zombies are good experience, but also they give me a chance at a Mega Elixir drop. Mega Elixir is a super valuable item to have late game for the Chaos Battle. However, I can make up for it by getting a regular Elixir in a chest in Temple of Fiends if I don't get it. With the ordeals out of the way, we're sailing over to the Ice Cave, and I think the Ice Cave is, again, one of those dungeons that for casual players saw an enormous jump up in difficulty from what they would expect to see around it. That caused a lot of frustration as well as much anguished level grinding in those places. Speedrun is, well, it's still really, really tough. Despite knowing where to go and having a lot of good tricks to deal with the monsters, you're just completely overpowered. Fortunately, I do get a lot of levels before I do the second half of the dungeon. However, even at level 31, which is what I'm going to be at exiting, it's still a pretty tough dungeon. So you can imagine how bad it is coming in at like level 17 or 18. Nice sail. We only had one encounter in as a preemptive. Something's clearly wrong with the monsters. They're all waiting inside the ice cave for me. This floor is more or less the same as the nasty floors in the Earth Cave, so we'll see cockatrices, we'll see mummies and wizards and undead. The formations are jumbled around a little bit, so you'll see like mummies together with cockatrices, so just a little bit tougher. But when we get down to the second and third floor, that's where it gets brutal. You know, I just wish I could tell in advance which red mage was going to be the Dan of the party so I could name him appropriately. That way there's just like no expectations. If he happens to live, you know, it's a party, it's a celebration, everything is just that much better. But as it is, it's kind of like a guessing game. You kind of look at the names and say, okay, the last 4 times I've played, this name for the Red Mage has been just a disaster, so he's probably the Dan of the party. But you never know for certain. For those that haven't seen the NES version of the game, in the speedrun there, when you get to Chaos, one of the Red Mages is just going to be absolutely flattened, and traditionally, I have a Red Mage named Dan who is playing that role. So if a Red Mage is just like not doing well at all, you know, really behind in leveling or just not participating in the party, he's the Dan in this version. You still have the problem that when you get to Chaos, one of the Red Mages is a lot more in a precarious position, but you'll at least have some chance of all 4 of your party members surviving. Sometimes, unless you've got a Dan. That really small floor I passed through that was only like 3 tiles wide, that's actually technically the bottom floor of the dungeon. For that reason, I kind of worry that I'll get something really, really nasty on those 3 steps. And in the NES version, if you went in from power on, you would get something nasty on those 3 steps. It's like a mage which likes to cast Faraga. Not entirely sure why I used an Ether on Gil. I'm imagining that he is going to be taking a snooze for most of the fog grind. It's actually close enough. 50 HP separation is something that one of the Red Mages could come back over the course of the leveling, so we'll see how it goes. But what I want to do in the typical case is kill off one of the Red Mages during the grind fight so that the rest of the party gets a 1/3 share of the monster's experience instead of a 1/4 share. Makes the grind like about 2 or 3 minutes faster if you do that. This is also the bottom floor of the dungeon, which makes it really, really nervous. Okay, we got through there with no encounters. A lucky break. Probably going to put us on pretty good pace for this ice cave. I think we've had several sections with a lot fewer monsters than I normally see. So here we go, eye number 1. Yeah, very nice. Yeah, get used to this guy though. I fight the eye because he's got 3,225 experience as well as gold. One of the most lucrative monsters that is also one of the easiest to kill. Which means I'm going to be just stepping back and forth here until we go from level 19 at the start to about level 31, which takes around maybe 60 eyes or so. By doing this, I don't have to do level grinding really anywhere else in the game, except for one specific spot if I'm just short of my estimate. And I also don't have to worry about the next couple of dungeons, because I'll finally be at a level appropriate amount for going through them. Well, we'll give Gil a shot. He's probably going to die if the Lich does, or I does another Thundara. But until then, he'll have a chance to get some levels. .240 that Lollybow has is really good at this point. Normally I'm at either 200 or 220 starting in the eye fight. And I'll be looking for one of the mages to get around 400 by the time we get to Chaos, which translates to leaving this part around 325 HP. Now the reason I chose level 31 for this part is because when we get to Anrak, where the Sea Shrine is, there's a spell I want to get for the White Mage called Kilaga. She needs to be level 33 to purchase that spell. And kind of working backwards, from 31 here, we go through Gurkha Volcano, we go through the waterfall, we go through the Sea Shrine. Bye-bye, Gil. Oh, he survived with 1 HP. Okay, Gil's a survivor. He's still gonna die, but he survived at least a little bit. Anyway. With luck, it'll line up so that the White Mage has 33 exiting the Sea Shrine. I want to see how long Gil can go at 1 HP. If he gets up to level 29, he can learn Thundaga. It's only 7 levels away. You just need everyone in chat to believe hard enough, and Gil will be able to survive. He will endure with 1 HP. Okay, you guys didn't believe at all. Didn't believe at all. Now, in addition to be easy to kill, the eye was also nerfed in this version. So in the original NES version, he had a special attack called Gaze. And if you had less than 301 HP when he cast Gaze on you, it was instant death. In this version, he still has a special attack called Gaze. In fact, he's got 4 special attacks called Gaze. The first one just does damage, which you've seen once or twice already in the grind so far. The second one does status effects, the third one does status effects, and the 4th time that he uses it, then it's finally the instant death. But he's not getting through a single round, much less 4 rounds of combat. So it's actually safe to grind on the eye here. NES version, since he could kill people, they just made the eye grind so unpredictable that it wasn't really a good choice. Instead, what you would do is grind in Gurgru Volcano and fight the Agamans there. They're still good experience, but they just don't give nearly as much gold as the eye does. Lollybo, by the way, is doing fantastic on levels. 331 at this point is excellent for a red mage. And I'm imagining that he's easily going to break 400, if not potentially even going for like 450, with good luck. Yeah, Gil taunted us by surviving Thundara with 1 HP, but it was just all talk. He was not really into this party. Alright, level 27, 4 more levels to go. And as you can see, we're getting levels at the start almost every fight with the eye. A little bit of that is artificial, since people have different XP totals since they've been dead for various fights in the game. But even later on, like, as we get towards the end of it, it's only a couple of eye battles between each level. Alright, 28 for our white mage, so 3 levels to go, and she's the only one that I care about for the level total. Everyone else can be below 31. Doesn't make a difference here. This is the worst fight. Hopefully we get away from these guys. That fight in particular is why I save periodically throughout the eye grind, just to make sure that we don't lose all of our hard-won progress. I do have to take a step onto regular territory in between each eye fight, which means some small random encounter chance, and it's not the worst floor of the dungeon, but it is a bad floor regardless. Okay, 29, so 2 more levels to go. We're probably losing a little bit of time from all these Thundaras just because I have to stop and heal. Alright, level 30, 1 more level to go. And Lollybo at 351 has crossed the absolute bare minimum threshold a red mage needs to fight chaos. So 350 is like just barely going to survive some of his specials. 400 is where I start getting comfortable. Alright, that should be 31. Let's get our other red mage up on his feet again. So 23, he's pretty far behind, but since there is kind of a increased growth between each level for how much experience you need, he'll basically be catching up for the rest of the game. And by the end of it, I think he's only like maybe 4 levels behind the rest of the party. Yeah, he's still worthless, but he will catch up in levels at least a little bit. And the levels are not overly significant for the red mages at this point because a lot of their function in combat is the buffing and boss battles. Both the temper spell as well as the haste spell that I'll be getting really shortly do not require the intelligence stat or level or anything in order to be useful. Gil will be behind if I have to do any elemental attacks though. Other thing I'm doing here is grabbing a nice 50,000 chunk of cash. That'll be useful for doing the bottle quest, as well as some of the shopping that I have coming up here. If you don't want the danger of having to grab all the money on the bottom floor of the ice cave, you can get like 20,000 from Cardia or so. So you might do some extra eye grinding or just other general monster fighting to make up the difference. I think it's a little bit faster to grab the treasure chests on the 3rd floor of the ice cave. The only thing you don't want is to go in the middle between the 2 rows, because the far right hand side, in the middle there is a trap tile. I notice there's only one person rowing the boat. The other 3 people are just taking a nap in the bottom. That one person, of course, Gil. You're not going to fight for us, you're going to row. Since we've already gotten the floater and the rat tail, I can go complete the class change quest now. I'll first get the airship down here in the desert area, and that'll also let me do all of my shopping in a bunch of new locations that open up. Now, it's never quite explained what happens to your regular sailing ship. It's the only ship in the world, so nobody else can get down here. And I guess oceanic travel and trade has completely dried up since we have monopolized it and then abandoned the ship callously to be bleached in the wind. But we don't care because we got this cool new airship thing. I'll hold on to the gauntlets for a little while longer since we do have only 1 1/4 working red mages. Needles. Also doing my final stocking for any consumable items as I go past the appropriate shops. Haste will be super useful in a lot of the boss battles. Blizzard is situationally useful for a couple of monsters that are weak to ice. Water elementals are probably the most notable, but nightmares are also weak to ice if we run into more of those guys. You get to enjoy Bahamut's unnecessarily long, but not at all maze-like hallways. I enjoy having the dash feature tremendously. It saves like 1.5 minutes just in this room alone. And for whatever reason, he takes a crusty old rat tail and gives us fancy new clothes. I like the White Mage's outfit in particular. Like, when she takes her hood off, I think it's a really good sprite upgrade. The other characters are kind of so-so. I thought the fighter looked a little bit better than the knight does, and the red mage I could go either way, whether you like the smaller red mages or the big ones. Now, the NES has a glitch where you can land directly on top of the caravan square. It allows you to avoid having to walk across the desert like this. Sadly, they did patch that out. Fortunately, in exchange for patching out the caravan landing glitch, they put a second shop underneath the caravan, and I buy 2 items there, Giant's Tonic and Speed Drinks, which gives me buffs for 1 battle. I'll use both of those during the Chaos fight. Kiraga on the White Mage is, or Kiraga on the Red Mage is a backup strategy I'm developing for Chaos. Makes the fight a little bit safer, because now I can have somebody that is able to heal the fighter in case Chaos decides to punch him in the head a lot. The White Mage is going to be stuck doing Healaga on the whole party, so she can't do any extra backup healing. Buy some ethers. And by some ethers, I mean buy it until it won't let me buy anymore. We're going to buy Thundaga for one of our red mages. The other one could have bought it if we had gotten him up to level 29. And Thundaga is useful for the Sea Shrine and a couple of other areas where you have lots of aquatic monsters together. Because one Thundaga will kill everything, whereas you would otherwise need 2 Thundaras, even with the White Mage using the gauntlets. Healaga is significantly weaker than Kiraga for a per-person basis. So basically the heal spells heal all 4 party members, but they do it as more or less 1 tier of spells lower. So I guess like Healaga would be a little bit stronger than a Cura on all 4 people. And this Healara is a little bit stronger than a regular Cure, but on all 4 people again. It was a little bit more explicitly tied to the previous level spells in the NES version. However, since you now have intelligence stat, it kind of mucks with that, so it's not quite as a direct relationship. But it's still pretty close. Alright, time for carry, and I'm looking at the overall splits and I'm wondering, what did I miss? Because I shouldn't be this far ahead. Hey Corpus Cav, welcome in. I don't think I've said hi to you so far tonight. Yeah, I have no idea how it's almost 10 minutes ahead at this point. I can't think of anything that I have skipped in this game. But with that, we open up our second optional dungeon. So this is the Final Fantasy IV themed one. As you go up the optional dungeons, they get longer and longer. So the first one is 5 levels deep, this one's 10, then 15, then 20. Alright, this is an unrunnable encounter. We're going to break out our Blizzaras. I believe it's 1 in 64. I forget if the 1 in 64 is this formation or if it is the red Ds. Either way, really rare. And also, your NES version, you would not have monsters in the area around the Fiend's crystals. But they took out all the safe squares for the GBA version. But bonus experience. Extra bonus experience. Hopefully this is not the Ogre Mage battle that together randomly has services, so that's an unrunnable. I'm just going to fight it regardless. There's a formation here which you can't always see because it has optional spawns in it to tell whether or not that's the Ogre Mage that's unrunnable. So that fairy is going to give us Axial when we go around to the back. But right now I'm going to buy a Ruby Armlet, as well as 4 Pro Rings. Gives me a pretty good defensive upgrade for just about everybody. Okay, 6 cottages. Hopefully that's enough for the rest of the game. It's kind of close. I don't think I ever used 6, but I know I've used 5 before. The Axial is required to eventually go to the Sea Shrine. We have another branching path at this point, like we did earlier with the canoe. You can either go to the waterfall or to the Sea Shrine before the Final Fiend's dungeon. I choose to do the waterfall, both because I need some extra experience for that white mage exiting the Sea Shrine, as well as it having a couple of cool items. Got the Defender's Sword, which is the last sword upgrade our knight's going to get, and a ribbon. The first of our 3 ribbons. For some reason, they only give you 3 ribbons, despite the fact that you clearly have 4 party members. Leads very strongly to the Dan syndrome in the NES version. There is actually a 4th ribbon in this version of the game, which is in one of the optional dungeons. However, that requires, I believe, going to the 10th floor of that fire dungeon we just unlocked. I heal up because there is a random encounter with gas dragons. It's the 1 in 64 encounter for this area. And there's only one gas dragon. Can never ambush you. Still, I'm really, really worried about it. Even late game, we're not going to be able to run from nightmares easily. And if there's 2 like this, it's fastest to use your elemental spells to take them down in parallel. If there's just 1, then you can melee it straight up at this point. Here's an example of how to deal with a single nightmare. Sword plus nightmare equals win. And you'll have seen throughout the game a lot of really annoying NPCs that get in my way. Bats are especially annoying since they're in dungeons where you're going to have enemy encounters having to dodge around them. But there's one special bat in the NES version of the game which very sadly does not appear in this remake. And that's Out of Bounds Bat. He is our one true bat friend because he never gets in our way. And I like to think that he's just so out of bounds that you can't even spot him. But he'd basically be a bat in the NES version that's floating in the blackness outside of the level, because he spawns on the border between inbounds and out of bounds, so his first step can take him outside and he'll never get back in. I was trying to get some extra experience for our red mage in the back, but he was the only one that got petrified. Oh well. I'm going to grab the warp cube here, I'm going to grab the ribbon and defender, and if the robot moves to the right, I can grab the treasure chest that he's standing in front of, which is the most lucrative of the 3 treasure chests in the middle that have gold. That one's got 12,350, the other 2 have like maybe 9,000 combined. But I need 30,000 for buying Healaga by the time I get out of the Sea Shrine. Otherwise I have to sell the gauntlets, which is always sad. Hey, Frost Giant. This is an unrunnable formation. He comes optionally with 0 to 2 Frost Wolves. And it's unrunnable in a lot of different contexts. You'll see him again, potentially, in Temple of Fiends. Time for my favorite dungeon, the Sea Shrine. Let's get Spooky Ghost Mermaid out of the way. We get to climb into the barrel. And I just like the overall aesthetic of the dungeon. It's got really good music. It's got a little bit of a different architectural style with all of these crumbling walls and corridors. And it's got 2 different branching paths. There's one that goes up to the mermaids, which is the slab quest. And the other is going down to Kraken. It's the only one that you have an actual choice about where you want to go in the dungeon. Okay, this is a fight that is pretty much the same as my grind spot if I don't have level 33 by the time I get to the bottom, so I'm going to go ahead and fight this one. You're going to use Thundaga, you're going to attack the other white shark. That'll make sure that we clear them off in one round. If both mages had Thundaga, it's a little bit easier because 2 Thundagas would take care of it. I wouldn't have to do anything with the other party members. Okay, Shurgo just got level 32, it looks like. So we're well on our way. Ooh. These guys. Ghosts are unrunnable undead that do a lot of damage. As you can see, that was a single hit for 144. They don't have a lot of hit points. They're one of the few enemies that I actually had to explicitly route around in the NES version to make sure that I didn't have to fight them. And here's a battle that's, again, unrunnable. It's not nearly as lucrative, but fortunately 1 Thundaga will clear the board. If you have Thundara, you have to do 2 casts instead. And if you get enough of these, it's where it pays off to have taken the time to go to Crescent Lake and get in Thundaga in the first place. Diamond Armor is the first upgrade for our fighters since the Iron Armor we got after the Marsh Cave. And I could have gotten the Fire Armor in Gurgu or the Ice Armor in the Ice Cave, but those are guarded by dragons. The Fire Armor also has an Agama to fight on the way in as well as the way out to the dragon. So I go for the one that is not guarded by anything. It's also nicely the one that has 32 absorbed compared to 24 for the other two. Lots of these ghosts. Well, this is going to put us in pretty good shape for getting to 33 before I get to the ribbon. Here on the mermaid floor, I'm going to grab 2 items. I get the diamond armlet, which is the last armor upgrade for the mages. That'll go to the white mage. And her ruby armlet will go to whoever didn't get the ruby armlet. I bought it in Gaia. And then we'll get the slab. Slab's the second of the 2 quest items that we need to advance to the Final Fiends dungeon. The other was the cube that we got earlier in the waterfall. Water Nagas are, well, they're not super dangerous, but they like to cast Thundara and they're pretty fast. There's another Naga in the Sky Castle, which is worth more experience, but is much less ferocious, because instead of doing attack spells like the Water Naga does, the Grey Naga just does defensive spells, so it's like free experience if you want to stick around for the fight. a lot of this battle. Means I'll probably be losing some time due to the extra slow encounters in here. However, we should still be substantially ahead. Alright, 33 on our white mage, means I don't have to do any more of the white shark fights. Gonna go ahead and grab the Giant's Glove. That'll be a really important item for all the remaining boss battles. Basically allows the fighter to buff himself with a spell that's slightly better than Temper. Then we'll grab the ribbon, and that'll go on to one of our other red mages. Well, when I say one of our other red mages, I mean Lolibo, because Gil's not getting anything nice. He is a casualty of this entire 2,000-year time loop. Now, there's actually some slight architectural changes in how this floor is laid out, which there doesn't seem to be any motivation for it. I just kind of noticed that I had to learn to look at the patterns a little bit differently from the NES version going to the GBA. And in some cases, you actually can reason why they made the change. Like in Ordeals, the area where I had to fight the nightmares, in the NES version, the corner was cut out, which meant that you could grab the heal staff and then duck back around without having to fight the nightmares a second time. Well, in this version, they filled the corner in, and it very clearly forces you to choose whether you want to do a second one of those trap battles if you want the item. But then they do lots of changes, like just moving slightly where walls are, or moving things on the overworld, and those don't have any real rhyme or reason, and so I don't know if it was like some well-intentioned strategy they had that just isn't apparent, or if they like accidentally move things around because they were copying from like pictures. By the way, this guy, he's a jerk. 8 arms because he's an octopus, and he does a lot of damage. The worst boss overall is Kraken 2, though. He does a significant upgrade from this one. So this one can reasonably kill Gil. Well, he can easily kill Gil. He could possibly kill Lolibo. Just killed Shoko there. Kraken 2 can just kill whoever he wants, except for maybe the fighter if he's got like all of his buffs up. And that's why I get exactly 33 before I leave the ribbon floor, because you could take it for chance and say, you know, maybe Kraken's not going to kill me, and, you know, save that extra like 500, 600 experience for the Kraken battle, but he's good. He's real good. And the monsters outside the Sea Shrine aren't nearly as lucrative. So you'd be spending like 2 or 3 minutes to get that extra experience if you happen to die early with the White Mage. This is the Final Fantasy V themed dungeon. It's got Gilgamesh running around chasing after mermaids. Let's put some of this equipment on. I duck back into the rivers here because even though it's a slightly more difficult encounter, there are no unrunnables on water. Whereas there's a couple of unrunnables in this land area. The Frost Giant Frost Wolves that we saw earlier, as well as the Ogre Mage Cerberus combination. That returns from Gurku Volcano. Okay, Dr. Un, we've got a slab for you. And with that, in mere seconds, he can teach us the Lufanish language. Somehow it all makes sense. So we have to do one more long walk. The airship lets us go anywhere and land on any clear square, so they designed an entire area of the game with nothing but forests and mountains and swamps and lakes, just to make you have one really long walk at the very end. But we have to do it because this town has the chime, which is the other item that we need to get into Tiamat's dungeon. It also has one unrunnable in this area, which are the Zombuls and Trolls. This is the area where Peninsula Power actually gets its enemies from. We'll find out how Gil is doing on Faragas here in a second. Gil's still 6 levels behind, which means he's got much less intelligence than Lolibo. Okay, we're probably not going to find out. I want to see exactly where he is to know whether he's going to be able to contribute in battles. Okay, so Lolibo's doing in the 190s. Gil 100. Means he has not hit the spot where red mages get a big jump in intelligence. Come on, guys. This is normally not a hard to run from battle. I don't know if having a really low level red mage significantly impacts us. I thought it was individual agility checks against the best in the monster formation. But I have seen a couple of times playing through where when I don't level up the red mage, then I do have trouble running away. But it could just be like a random observational bias. Alright, there's the chime, and all these jerk NPCs we can just teleport out. If you don't class change, which is another variation I do for playing through this game, You don't get the teleport spell, and that is, in a couple of dungeons, got a large impact, like the waterfall. You have to do the floor backwards. Sea Shrine, you have to do 3 floors backwards, or at least 2 major ones. But then you really feel it in towns as well, because having to thread through all the NPCs twice means that you're much more likely to get blocked somewhere. Now, these are not bad XP-wise. In fact, 4 Zombles is about 33% more than an eye. However, I don't necessarily want to be getting into all these unrunnable battles, because at this point I do have some better options for level grinding at the late game. Once you get into Temple of Fiends, like, experience doubles or triples compared to what you could get earlier. And even in the Sky Castle, there's a lot of really good XP packs. So most of the time, if I'm getting into a lot of unrunnable encounters here, it's just straight up time loss. I actually moved Mirage Tower farther to the south. In the NES version, if you walk to the west, you cannot see Mirage Tower. And in this version, even though it's got a slightly different screen ratio and perspective, you can actually see Mirage Tower here. Ooh, Earthquake. This could kill Gil. This is a really rare spawn. Earthquake is the same spell that Chaos uses for his special. Here, want Gil. Everybody else, well, actually, you could kill the fighter at this point. There with the fighter. Going to say he does not have his ribbon yet. I don't think this is unrunnable. We're just going to try to plow through it. There we go. Wow, that's a lot of time lost, though. Unfortunate. Mirage Tower is really, really short if you don't want the items. First floor has got an Aegis Shield and a Heal Helmet. Aegis Shield would be a slight upgrade for our Knight. It's 4 points of defense better, and it also protects against some of the oddball status effects like Petrification and Poison, but he'll be getting a ribbon pretty soon. Heal Helmet's not really useful in this version of the game. It's much more significant in the NES version, where you are constrained heavily on what healing items you have available to you. Second floor, I feel more pain on having to skip the items. Missing up on a Dragon Armor, which is a nice upgrade for our Knight. Sun Sword, which would be a good backup sword for the Defender, as well as a Thor's Hammer for our White Mage. But I can really go without all those items. We don't need a lot of buffs or equipment at this point. These guys are one of the nicer encounters to get in Mirage Tower. They're good experience, and they're weak to thunder, so one Thundaga takes them out. You can also get packs of vampires. Both guards and vampires come in packs ranging from 2 to 5. I like the guards a little bit better because it's 1 Thundaga versus having to use 2 Faragas. I need to be careful because I think the last red mage is still set on teleport for his memory cursor. Your memory cursor remembers what spell you have selected until you do a soft reset. So that saves me time in a lot of situations where the spell I want to cast in the overworld or in dungeons is the same one as previous. But it's also really dangerous to have teleport as one of your memory spells. And here's our friendly eye, still worth 3,225 experience. That's the spirit Naga I was talking about earlier. Hey, I's still showing up. Now the first two floors of this place are not too bad. Then you start getting into a little bit more difficult monsters. Fourth floor has lots and lots of sorcerers, potentially. Fifth floor has the infamous war mech. I save on both of those floors. The Death Knight there is pretty dangerous. If he chooses to cast spells, his second spell is actually nuke. It's mostly a problem if he ambushes you. Teleport there just saves me a little bit of backtracking. It's faster to do the teleport animation than it is to potentially get into another random encounter. And the random encounter rate is just so high in this version of the game that it pays off. I think they realized how bad the random encounters were because PSP actually toned it back down. This was a big jump up from all the previous remakes, and it's higher than the later remakes as well. Here's the first time that you actually take advantage of the fact that floors infinitely wrap around in all directions. This was also one of the causes for seeing out of bounds bat where you do in the waterfall, because you're actually poking around to the far right-hand side of the screen, even though you're going to the far left for getting the cube. Come on guys, poisonous nachos, you don't want to stick around for this. It is a terrible start to a party. Saving again for Warmech. No Warmechs, but this is one of the worst formations. You can actually get 2 Clay Golems with the 6 Mind Flayers. Clay Golems cast Haste, which gives the Mind Flayers even more hits per round to try to use their instant death. Okay, we got out of there. But they followed us! Okay, Tiamat time. Tiamat works pretty much like Kraken. I'm going to use the Giant's Gloves. I'm going to buff up the fighter until he can hit around 2,000, 2,200 damage. It's roughly where the damage cap is for his buffs. And I'll use Hilaga from the beginning because Thunderbolt is how Tiamat likes to open up. Thunderbolt is her first special. Even in the refight, she likes Thunderbolt there as well. The refight gives her additionally Scourge as her first spell, which is an instant death against Gil. It's the only one that's not protected by a ribbon. There goes Gil. Poison Gas is the same attack that Gas Dragons have. which is why they're so ferocious. Even through a ribbon, they do a lot of damage. Alright, one more hit. Actually, no, 2 more hits for this one. We're not going to get enough tempers to do it in 2 rounds. Oh, we did! Good luck on the fighter there. We still lost a lot of time from just very atrocious RNG on the random encounters, but that happens throughout the game. It's one of the reasons why you'll see me be like -5, +5 all over the place for minutes of splits. Alright, one last celebration, but we've killed all 4 fiends now. It's time to go 2,000 years into the past and fight chaos. I don't get the adamantine, so we don't have to forge Excalibur or anything like that. The Defender's Sword from the waterfall is enough for our fighter. We will, however, save, just in case there is a war mech lurking in the shadows behind us. Alright, we got out of there. Now for Temple of Fiends, there's just a lot of nasty monsters, regular monsters, that give me a lot of trouble. So what I do is a technique called safe scumming, where across the first floor where there are frost dragons and the third floor that has gas dragons, you'll just see me save every couple of steps. And that way we can slowly progress along the floor, even if we get bad random encounters. The really, really good runs, including I think the run I'm comparing against, they're going to have like 0 or 1 resets during that point, but you could easily get like 8, 9, 10 resets, and that's just part of the RNG of the game. So no lead is safe in Temple of Fiends. Okay, here it begins. Hoping for no frost dragons. You'll sometimes get purple worms on this floor, which are unrunnable, but good experience. Frost dragons, they just hit super hard, and you've got no way of running from them. I check at the beginning of the battle whether or not it's going to be a preemptive. If it's a preemptive, you do have the ability to guarantee right on the first turn. That's a feature of preemptives. If you don't do the preemptive on the first turn, then you lose that. Okay, purple worm. I will take this. Decentish first floor. Now we get to the gas dragons. Okay, how many Faragas are we gonna get? Normally you have a ambush on this, or not an ambush, but a preemptive, so you can run away. But if you don't, those wizards like to cast Faraga after Faraga. Okay, one's not too bad. I'll take the step progress that we got. Black Knights, this is another fight that we can run away from, so that's good. Now for Phantom. We don't have enough oomph with our fighter to take him down with physical attacks, so I use Faraga as a backup. Alright, we're still in it. Need to get up the elixir from back here. That'll be used in the Chaos battle. 2 Gas Dragons. I could potentially take that fight with Blizzaras, but since I only took 1 step, it's faster to run. If I had taken like 20 steps, I would probably fight that out. Okay, second floor, second pass. And then we have to do the Frost Dragon floor again. Whatever the gauntlets, there they are. This encounter is just hard to run from. Normally chimeras are not that bad, but for some reason, recently I've just been having trouble getting away from these. Zombies! Well, another chance at Mega Elixir. It's too late at this point, I've already grabbed the regular Elixir. But the Mega Elixir makes the Chaos battle a little bit easier to use the item in. Alright, back to Frost Dragon Land. Doing good so far. Not doing so good. Well, only one of them so... As long as we don't have too many resets, we stay on good pace. Yeah, Purple Worm, I'll take the battle. Starting to get to the point where Purple Worms are not really all that helpful. Normally I'm finishing at 36. I've just started hitting it with a couple of my party members. Been kind of a slow first floor. I probably lost maybe about a minute and a half compared to what's optimal for going through here. But we are down to the 4 elemental floors now. Each of these is themed after one of the 4 fiends, and you have to refight the boss at the end. All the 4 fiends have been upgraded. Lich has got the nuke spell. Other than that, he's not overly interesting. Carrie's got Faraga. Kraken just does even more physical damage. It's into ridiculous territory by this point. Tiamat's probably the least changed overall. She's got more HP and more defense, so it's probably one more round of combat. But otherwise, exactly the same. And then Chaos. Chaos is, well, it's a long fight. I'm thinking one of our mages might not survive this. Not gonna say which one. 278 on the borderline for Flare. 257, he made it. I guess Gil wants to participate. Now that Lich has done his flare, I'm just going to heal up to full with Faraga, and then he doesn't really have anything else interesting. I think when he gets around to his third spell, it is Warp. It's an instant death spell that could potentially kill Gil there. But everybody else is just going to go straight on in attack mode. Carry functionally is more or less the same as Lich, except I'll be healing throughout the entire fight. Or at least the first couple of rounds. I don't have enough MP to do every round of the fight, but I think I'll only be one round short. Hey Joe, welcome in. It might be a nice run. I know I lost time in the first half of Temple of Fiends with just really bad encounter rates. But it's just so hard to predict how things are going to be. Like a lot of the late game time savings is all RNG on encounters. Alright, carry is down. 2 more fiends to go. Yeah, the limit break time is kind of early in the morning, unfortunately, but hopefully that will not deter too many people from watching. Also, hopefully I will not oversleep and miss the run, because that would be very sad. As you can see, Gil is starting to catch up a little bit in terms of damage to Lollybow. He's still several levels behind. He's going to be very far behind on HP, but we can at least kill things at a reasonable clip. Alright, time for Kraken. Don't tease the octopus, kids. Probably should have healed before the fight, but, you know, going for a good time. And he uses ink on the first turn. That's nice of him. I think even if I heal up, he could kill the 2 red mages in 1 hit. Not both of them, unless it was a really, really good hit, but... they probably didn't matter as much as healing up on the white mage. I'm going to keep healing throughout this fight with the white mage because, you know, Thundara, that's a nice one. Is kind of chip damage for everybody except for Gil there, but his physical attacks are enough that I want to be healing immediately after if he hits even the fighter. Like 2 really good hits could kill the fighter. Okay, 3 fiends down. I will save at the beginning of this floor because there are sorcerers all over the place. The Tiamat's pretty much the same fight as before. Gil could die here, but it missed. Scourge is an instant death poison attack. Unless you've got the ribbon or the Aegis shield, then those are the only 2 things that are protected in the base game. There's Thunderbolt, and Tiamat does have a Munch attack. She's got 6 heads, so it's 6 hits, but it's a lot less damage than Kraken. So I don't worry nearly as much about the red mages in this one. Gil obviously is going to be going down in 1 hit to anybody, but I think Lalibo is safe. Yeah, even Gil survived. Kraken would not have let that mistake go past. Come on, Curse Gamer, we're like 8 minutes away from the finish. You can hold out. Hold out. Air elementals are runnable. All the other elemental types, earth, fire, and water, are unrunnable. But air elementals you can run from, and you can run from elementals that are together with a partner, like water elemental with Naga you can run from. And A-Fire actually does something in this version. NES it was bugged, so it would never work on the monster that cast it. Here it actually does take away the double damage that undead normally have for fire. Okay, move our elixir into place. We're gonna use the Dan strats. Let's go for it, Chaos. There'll be a PB if I get it on the first try. Chaos can be a jerk. Surprise. Got 20,000 HP, he does about twice as much damage with his regular attacks, and one person does not have a ribbon, so they are kind of screwed. Okay, Blaze Gill might die to this. This is one of Chaos's stronger openings, which is to go down his special line. Ah, Gill. Gill, Gill, Gill. Okay, Tsunami's another in his special line. Chaos, like everybody else, has got 3 attack classes. His physical hits, which do a lot of damage to one party member. Specials, which rotate between Blaze, Tsunami, Cyclone, and Earthquake. Blaze, Tsunami, and Cyclone are all large elemental damage spells. Earthquake is an instant death spell, so I get a chance to heal up during that one. And then all of his attack spells are pretty buff. Okay, he's really working at wiping this party out. Hopefully he does not punch the white mage again. I do have a Kiraga I can drop on her. But I think 398 would be really close. Okay, Cyclone. This will get white mage back up to full. Or close enough. This Kiraga is a relatively new strategy. It takes rounds in the fight, but it makes Chaos's punches a lot less threatening. Punched her again. Okay, here's the first in his spell line. Spells will eventually get to Kiraja, which heals him for 9,999, as well as even farther eventually to Flare, just like Nuke, or just like Lich had for Nuke. Hopefully he will not get that far. Hey, that a Calandri, welcome in. Alright, slow on the white mage. I was really looking forward to her punching Chaos some, but I guess not. We'll have to use the fighter instead. Because our red mage died on the first turn, I'm going to give him one more round of buffs, and then we're going to switch to having the fighter attack. He does 2200, then I'll know to switch the red mage to speed drinks. At that point, it's a damage race against Chaos getting to Kiraja. So where are you? Next turn I have to remember to use the elixir on the white mage. Okay, 2600, you are ready to do what you need to do, fighter. Elixir, this will carry us through the rest of the fight. Doesn't matter that Chaos punched her, because we just got a full heal. And that also restores all of her MP, so she can just keep casting Healaga for the rest of the battle. I think we're like 8,000 in out of 20,000. And those speed drinks are going to increase the number of attacks per round the fighter does. Its base effect is to increase your accuracy. And your attacks per round is derived from accuracy divided by, I think, 32. Blaze, he's wrapped around to the beginning of his specials again. Which is good because it means he's not going down the spell line, so he's probably not going to be able to get to Kiraja at this point. Thinking we'll end around 247 here. Getting close. Okay, Thundaga. Still in the spell line. It's unfortunate. I think he might be one away from Kiraja. Oh, bad move punching the fighter. Fighter punches harder than you do, Chaos. There he goes. 20... Hey. 20,000 HP down. And it only took us 2 hours, 46 minutes, and 53 seconds. That was